Marvel Phase 4 continues with The Eternals, the newest post-Infinity Saga film, which tells the story of an immortal alien race who emerged from hiding to protect Earth from yet another threat. Led by critically acclaimed director Chloe Zhao and a star-studded cast, this Avenger-adjacent origin story aims to continue to expand the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. All right, this is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing Eternals. Eternals. Directed by Chloe Zhao, written by Chloe Zhao, Patrick Burleigh, Ryan Firpo, and Kaz Firpo. Starring Gemma Chan, Richard Madden, Kumail Nanjiani, McHugh, some jerk in his souped-up Mustang. Oh my God, look at me and my Mustang. All right. Starring Gemma Chan, Richard Madden, Kumail Nanjiani. I don't know why I'm struggling with Kumail Nanjiani. McHugh, Brian Tyree Henry, Lauren Ridloff, Barry Keoghan, Don Lee, Harish Patel, Kit Harrington, Salma Hayek, and Angelina Jolie. Eternals. Okay, so we're continuing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are now in Phase 4. As I said at the top of the episode. And the movies that I've seen so far, we've seen Black Widow. We've seen Shang-Chi. Now Eternals. Next up is Spider-Man. And after that, I don't think it'll be Spider-Man Far From Home. And then after that will be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, this one I had my hesitations about. I was concerned about, I guess I should say, after seeing the previews, and not really concerned about, but I was kind of indifferent to what I'll say. After seeing the previews for it, I was starting to get pumped. I was like, okay, this looks interesting. All right, I trust them. The last time I felt this way about a Marvel movie was when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, because they were the only Marvel characters that I knew nothing about. Now, the Eternals are the same way. I don't know anything about them. I've never seen them in anything. I don't know how they connect to the larger part of the story, any of that stuff. But when I saw the preview for Guardians of the Galaxy and then I saw the movie, they made me fall in love with the characters. There wasn't much for me to really have to grasp or understand. Now, train going by. So my hesitation with this is, I guess my qualms about this is, again, not knowing any of these characters. That means I have to walk into a movie and meet a bunch of characters. And I mean, it's a star-studded cast, so there's a lot of people on screen that they're meant for you to see and know and interact with, and you're supposed to know all the parts of the story. And then in the back of your mind as an MCU fan, you're thinking, how do they fit into the greater picture? So this is a very ambitious project. You immediately have to go in and look at something like this. And immediately, I'm saying immediately a lot. You have to go in and look at something like this, know all the characters, and then think also how they're going to fit into the greater Marvel universe. So it's ambitious starting off. You guys heard me say this in my Dune review. I'm going to recycle it again. This should not have been a movie. This should have been a series. It was 2 hours and 37 minutes long. And unfortunately, because they had so many characters, the character development was awful. Like, there was no reason for me to care about most of the people that I saw on the screen. Now, let me just back up and just say the plot real quick. So it just turns out that there's these beings out there called the Celestials, and they send the Eternals to Earth to protect Earth from what are called the Deviants. And they just, kind of chill on Earth, and anytime there's Deviants, they go fight them. So that's the whole plot of the movie. So you have all these different Deviants. They have names like Greek gods that you've heard of. There's Athena and Icarus and Sprite and all these other names. So, yeah, great. So you got it. The point is, I don't care about any of them. And I feel like I said this in Dune, like they had a bunch of characters that I didn't necessarily care about. And so when you only have 2 hours and 37 minutes, like essentially one very long film with a bunch of people that I don't know anything about, you really have to pitch me down to sell it. Hello. Am I good standing here? Or? Oh.
So do that.
Okay.
It's a federal building. We'll hover around it. We're curious.
All right. I'm just recording a podcast, man.
Say again?
I'm just recording a podcast.
There, man.
Is it illegal for me to stand here?
I didn't say that.
All right. Okay. All right. So, anyway, I think this could have deserved probably a lot more character development. So, just in case you guys are wondering, a security guard has walked up to me and is just standing next to me because apparently I'm standing next to a federal building, which is across the street from an AMC. And it's not illegal to do that, but he says I can't be doing that because you hanging around a federal building. I'm not going to move. So, we'll see where this goes. So, for me, the pacing was a little unbalanced. Because it's long, it's 2 hours and 37 minutes long. That's long enough for it to be a movie, but that's not necessarily long enough to do the type of character development that it needs to do. Or the type of character development that probably needs to actually take place in a film like this. So it doesn't actually cover everything that it's supposed to be covering. When you walk into a Marvel movie, the expectation is that you're walking into something that's tightly constructed, beginning, middle, and action sequences. You could almost play a drum to the beats of these movies. Whereas this one, the beats were wildly all over the place. And I think some of that had to do with the director, writer, Chloe Zhao, who, the last film I saw her do was Nomadland, which, it's a different movie. It's not like this. So I feel like whenever you get movies whenever you have properties, that are owned by people, like Marvel, Star Wars, any of that stuff, whenever you bring in, you have to be careful what directors you bring in to do stuff. This is exactly why I was nervous about Quentin Tarantino coming in and doing something like Star Trek, because I'm like, Quentin Tarantino has a style all to his own that he does. Quentin Tarantino has a certain style. So I'm like, what's the difference between you don't put Quentin Tarantino movie like Star Trek because there's a lot of action and things. There's just a lot of ways in which it's different from what you would expect from a Quentin Tarantino movie, who's a brand and a property on all his own. I think Chloe Zhao has some of that as well, and I think they thought she would be a good match for a film like this. I just didn't see it. Watching it, it just felt like the movie was too slow, and it did not have to be that slow. And if it's going to be a movie, it can't be slow. You know what I mean? It can't be as slow as they're supposed to be making it right there. So, this dude's a douchebag. Sorry, I'm just really upset. This security guard is just basically standing next to me, hovering, because I said it's illegal for me to stand there. He said no. So. So now he's helping other people, but apparently I'm the threat, which is very frustrating. So anyway, the plot of the movie is also kind of contrived, because you get to a place where, the plot of the movie, I struggled with it because it seemed again, this is something that probably could have been a series. And I think if they would have put this on Disney Plus, it would have made more sense. They could have built to it. They could have done the character development they wanted to. They probably could have spent less money on Angelina Jolie and half the cast of Game of Thrones. You probably could have saved some money there, but instead you've spent money putting it in the theater, and then it kind of hamstrings everything, the plot. So the plot is basically I don't want to give it away, but I will say it's largely boring. The movie is largely boring, but when they get to what the main point of the plot is, I'm like, wait, so nobody's wrong? Like, I think my whole thing, I was sat there watching the movie and I was like, nobody's really wrong here. Like, nobody didn't, like, there's no, like, bad guys necessarily. And I don't know if that's a spoiler. Of course, the deviants are the bad guys, so I'll just throw that in there as a bone. Whatever. I mean, if it's spoiling, I don't think this movie's that great, so I don't think hopefully I'm not, I don't know, ruining it for somebody. But that being said, like, I don't think that there's necessarily, like, when you get to whatever the problem is, I don't think they made it clear enough for me to say, hey, you guys should take action A or take action B, when the only real stakes are that Earth is in the balance. And so, of course, they want us to default to being like, you should save Earth. But in some ways, I was sitting there watching the movie and be like, I don't know. You should not save Earth on this one. And then also, because you have a movie like this where it's, again, a standalone Marvel film, so there's no Avengers, nobody else is going to jump in to save them. They don't have contracts on this movie. They're not cast for this movie. So you're only going to see them dealing with this massive problem in front of them. And as a result, this massive problem in front of them, and as a result, you don't really get to see how everybody else reacts to it at all. So I don't know. I mean, I didn't like it. I mean, I don't think it's the worst Marvel movie at all. I think there's other ones that are terrible. None of them are coming to mind right now, but if I took some time and thought about it, I'm sure there's others that will come to mind that are just equally bad or worse than Eternals. But this one, it wasn't that good. It just wasn't that good. I mean, for me to be sitting in the theater for 2 hours and 37 minutes, like, it felt like homework. And I don't like when movies feel like that. Like, I watch Oscar movies and all that stuff, and I've seen a lot of movies that do feel like homework when you go to watch them. Nomadland felt like homework. Like, there's a lot of movies you go in, they're like, oh, it's so beautiful in landscape. And I'm like, great, man, but this feels like homework, man. It feels like a movie y'all make me watch in class. Like, y'all, how come in middle school they never let us watch the good movies? Y'all got us watching all the boring movies. Like, I mean, we're looking forward to Selena and Stand and Deliver on those days, because other ways y'all got to show documentaries and everything else that feels like a bunch of homework. So, yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I think I would give it 2.5 of 5 stars. Like, I would give it 2.5 of 5 stars. I'm laughing because now he's telling somebody who just pulled up that there's no parking here. So yeah, I would give it 2.5 of 5 stars. Didn't quite like it. I don't think it's like so bad that I have to give it 2 stars, but I mean, I liked Dune better, and I mean, I've listed all the problems I had with Dune. This had some of the same problems, and I think the fact that this was also largely boring and should have been a television series is enough for it to knock it down a full half star for me. So, yeah, with that, 2.5 of 5 stars. See it if you want. I wouldn't. I don't think you're missing anything, and I don't think there's any pieces here that add to the bigger puzzle of Marvel to begin with, but whatevs. Go see it. If you're a completist like me, definitely got to put it on the list. So, with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of ohitsBigRon Studios. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. To find out more about this show and other ohitsBigRon Studios shows, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ohitsBigRon. That's at ohitsBigRon. If you like this show, I host another show on the Pushkin Industries podcast network called Solvable. Check that out wherever you listen. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening.